So, 2023 has been a very interesting year to say the least. I'm sorry this setup looks a bit weird. I literally just went from my other setup in Florida to here back here in Puerto Rico. So I'm back in the OG space. I have the Javelin vinyls. I have all of bro, I have the mangas in here, as well as the vinyls, as well as some other stuff in here. It's insane, honestly, just switching back and forth. So to come back to the video, 2023 in terms of music, it's been a very interesting year. 2022 was sort of like a huge like hybrid of a bit of everything. There was like super hype songs, there's like banger albums. There was some serious albums, very conceptual records like Missing Around the Big Steppers. There is some very sort of edging both in terms of conceptual and at the same time hype, like the Forever Story, which is a great blend of that as well. The point is that there were a lot of records last year where it was like a bit of everything, and you could never really get bored with anything. So fast forward to this year, which I was expecting a lot of things, and hey, I got a lot of things as well. I'm not gonna lie, there are some parts where I wish that 2023 sort of improved on. I feel that this year kind of gave us a little bit more of records that I won't really return after the first or second listen, or records that I guess are too heavy in its conceptual matter to the point that returning to it is a bit harder and it's not that easy on the ears, I guess, to come back to. Again, it's not saying that's bad. These records can be great, but it's more of I don't know. It's more of like I wish there was more of a reason to return to it. But anyway, that's not the point of the video. The point in this video is to give you guys my list of the best albums of 2023. I made a video recently talking about the honorable mention to 2023. The records that did not make the list but are definitely worth checking out because I personally think they're decent, they are solid. They just don't fit necessarily the category of the best, but they're still worth a shot. So it seems that I made an error when I'm making this video. I forgot to include Utopia in this list, which is kind of crazy because that was one of my favorite albums of this year. So yeah, a little quick rundown. Utopia. I just think that the production in there is marvelous. Just the rich use of dark synthesizers, heavy boom bap drums occasionally actually in the intro track Hyena, and even Lost Forever featuring West Side Gun, which by the way it might be the fast feature in Utopia next to SZA. But yeah, just I guess how Travis knows how to direct his features, the artists in here, and how he can just make this whole like dark yet ambient world at times and also chaotic just work. It's just miraculous because you would expect that after Astral World, it might be a bar set so high, or even after Rhodia, it probably was a bar set so high that it'll be like kind of hard to even meet it. But Utopia just proves that Travis Scott still has something left in him. And in terms of ranking, I'll put this thing probably in the 20s. Again, I don't want to redo everything in this list. I'm gonna just put it a bit ambiguous and just put it in the high 20s if anything. So to start the list, we have Gangsta Grill's Murder Gang by DJ Drama and Young Chimmy. I honestly think that this record was very interesting. I think it was more of what I expected in terms of like Chimmy delivering. I just kind of wanted him to go out there and start dropping projects. And to be honest, this record is everything I wanted for a Young Chimmy record. It has the features, it has the Detroit style production that he always rides on. And while it can get a bit stagnant and a bit weak as the record goes on, I still feel like Chimmy's performance just kind of like puts I guess the judgment of the production aside, and it just makes it much more exciting and much more tolerable if anything. And I cannot get tired of the intro track. I think that the energy that DJ Drama brings with the ad libs and just Chimmy just rapping his ass off just makes the entire experience so worthwhile. At number 36, we have Version Up by Odd Eye Circle. Yes, it's surprising. I listen to K-pop. It's crazy. But yeah, Odd Eye Circle, I think they are very interesting, like they're a trio, I believe. I think it's like a trio from an other K-pop group. I'm sorry, I don't know if they're Luna. I don't know if they're from Luna or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I just found this EP because a lot of people were talking about it, and boy, is it good. I think Gemma Sekwa is from this EP. That song is a masterpiece. It's honestly just amazing. It's such a fun, catchy, vibey Korean pop banger. The whole melody just stuck in my head. If I'm being honest with you, the bass line is groovy. Again, aside of this song, just the other songs in this record are also very catchy, very nice, very groovy, very like radio friendly and accessible, but not too much to the point that it becomes generic trash or anything like that. I think this record is an exception. It's fun, it's catchy, it's quirky. Give it a listen, even if you don't like K-pop. Number 35, I have Get Up by New Jeans. I've been following New Jeans for quite a while, ever since last year when they dropped that once. I think it was Oh My God. Yeah, that song just exploded everywhere on TikTok. I found it to be catchy, kind of quirky. So I followed the group, and honestly, I listened to their prior stuff, their EP, which I thought was also kind of decent. It was cool, even though I wish they expanded a bit more in their styles and stuff. And I'm glad to say that this EP really just expanded on everything. It gave us more bangers, has some very nice, cute little songs there as well. There's this one song which I think is the most popular song there. I can't believe I'm forgetting this song because I just always listen to this song, or I just had it in constant rotation. Uh, Super Shy, bro. That song, Super Shy, is such a banger of a song. Honestly, it's fun, it's quirky. It's a bit of like it's not breakcore. It's kind of like hyper pop ish in a way, sort of. It's catchy as hell. I think it's like the je ne sais quoi of the album, if anything. It's very catchy. There's also a lot of songs here that just are great songs. There are some transitions thrown in here, surprising for an EP. I haven't heard that many EPs that have transition songs, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I think that New Jeans pulls their weight, and just or honestly, I would call them. I would probably say that this group has one, if not the best songwriting in terms of the new wave of Korean pop that's going on in the scene right now. And I cannot wait for them to just drop their debut record, which I think will even be better than what they were dropping right now. Number 34 had The Loveliest Time by Carly Rae Jepsen. To be frank, I know that a lot of people have been saying that Carly Rae has a great discography aside of, her absolutely monstrous hits back in 2013 with Call Me Maybe, and Good Time, and a bunch of other songs. And while still haven't diving that deep into her discography, I heard a lot of people saying that this new record was good, so I gave it a shot. And boy, was it honestly just a whole different experience. I did not expect her to go this route. I would say that my favorite song of this record is Collage with the K. It's like Man I Trust in a way. It's very like indie. It's kind of R&B. The mixing in that song is honestly just stellar. The bass line is just so punchy and crunchy and groovy as well. It's a very emotional song. Has great. This is great performance. Honestly, it's very trippy at the same time. I know I'm throwing a bunch of adjectives, but that's just how I feel in the song, and it's just very hard to describe it. But overall, as a record, it does have some synth pop thrown in there, some vintage pop, and again some R&B cuts that are more emotional and just so gonna kind of showcase her songwriting a bit more. It's a bit more like, I guess, abstract in a way. I found it to have a great pacing as well, even though there's some songs that I would personally not put in this record. But as a journey, as an experience, I think it's very fun. It's very popish. It's very catchy, and it has a lot of emotional highlights as well. At number 33, I have Ooh Rap I Yeah by George Clanton. I haven't really heard of George Clanton. I know that people said that he had a good record back in 2020, 2021, but that was when I really got into this into Ooh Rap I Yeah. But yeah, honestly, this record is pretty surprising. If anything, the whole psychedelic sound that it has kind of reminds me of a blend of like super like I guess 80s vintage pop, vintage synth pop, vintage like synthesizer. I can't say that word because then I'll get demonetized in here, but you know what I'm trying to say. Uh, but yeah, honestly, it just the whole feeling and vibes I get is like kind of nostalgic, even though I wasn't born at that time at all. And it also kind of reminds me a bit of Tame Impala in terms of how trippy it can get. I will say the mixing is a bit 50-50 in some songs because it can get a little bit blurry with the lyrics. And I will say that this album is better played in terms of you're listening to headphones. It can get all the elements in. In the whip, it's kind of cool. You know, it's kind of cool having it. But I think when you're listening to headphones, you kind of get the full experience in there. In terms of lyrics, I will be honest, it isn't the most sophisticated lyrical structure at all. It doesn't really have that many things going on with the lyrics. I do think it is kind of catchy. Not gonna lie, it has some pretty catchy hooks in there, which I think is part of the whole, I guess, gimmick that this album has attached to it. But sonically, this record is honestly fantastic. It's one of the best produced records I've heard in a while. At number 32, I have The Patience by Mick Jenkins. I've been following Mick for a while. I did recently listen to The Waters, which I think is claimed as his best record, which came out like years ago. I wanted to do that. I wanted to listen to that record years ago too, but I just just time gets in the way and life gets in the way. And I think The Waters is a great album. I think you should definitely check it out. It's one of the better mixtapes that I've heard in a while as well. But yeah, going back to this record, The Patience, it was surprisingly shorter than I imagined it to be. I think it's like around the 20 something minute mark, almost 30 minutes. But it just has such consistent writing overall. There's just so many bars sprinkled around here. I think Smoke Break with JID is easily the best song of this record. The way that they can both effortlessly just trade bars and his flow together. It's just amazing. The beat is great as well. There's some jazzy undertones in this record as well as some trap. There's a trap interlude in here, which I thought was pretty cool. 007, I believe. I don't know why people don't like that song. I thought it was kind of a bop. There's also Freddie Gibbs features. There's a lot of features thrown in here. I think the features were pretty well. If anything, they were pretty good overall. But I think I like how Mae Jenkins doesn't allow himself to get over rapped, and he just raps his ass off in every single song. Like it just like his life depends on it. But yeah, again, I think that Mick just showcased that he still has the talent. He still has the pen that he used to have in the Waters and his other previous material and other previous songs. And yeah, just give this album a listen if you're a fan of the hip hop genre, and if you're a fan of the, I guess, sort of jazz hop bridging boom bap style, if anything. At number 31, we have Keitramine featuring Quaranta and Amine. This collab album was kind of came out of the blue. I know they announced it when they dropped Forever with Pharrell Williams as a feature. It's honestly one of the most colorful records and one of the, I guess, one of the albums I have the most enjoyment with, I think I've heard in this decade. That sounds like a whole like verbatim that is through there in that sentence, but the best way I can structure the best way I can describe this record is mostly like it's just a summer anthem album, which ironically enough it did come out in summer, which is funny. But yeah, almost all of these songs are just summer anthems. I think my favorite song was Forever. It was Forever, yeah. And I think, or Let's Talk About It. Honestly, there's a lot of songs in here that I thought were just fantastic. I think Freddie Gibbs killed it in that verse, and Let's Talk About It. But yeah, I think that Amine honestly just still has that writing things in him. I think he aims more for catchiness in his record, if anything. He just reads the room perfectly, because Hitronda is known for making his dance beats and making more of like catchy music. And instead of just going the Hitronda formula, Amine kind of gives his 2 cents in and brings his style, his ability of rapping, and his ability of his music, and mixes it with Kitronda so effortlessly and so well. I don't know why this record. I don't know why people don't really like this record. I personally found it to be that super enjoyable. Maybe there's some corny lyrics here and there, but even with that being said, it's still very fun to listen to. And you don't have to overthink anything about it. I think it has a stellar outro, a stellar intro, and just so many highlights that I have it. That I still, even till this day, even in December when it's not even summertime, I still have it in my rotation. Think it's fun. Think it's cheeky. Just give it a listen. You're not gonna regret it at all. Number 30, I have Eitai Suru Kemuri. I don't know how I can translate that album in English. I'm just gonna leave it out as it is. But I think by Ozora Kimishima. Hopefully I'm saying it correctly, even though I took Japanese classes. Like I still can't say this thing correctly. It's honestly just insane. But yeah, honestly, this record is one of the most interesting records I would say in the underground scene, in the Japanese underground scene. It has such a great mix of folk music, indie rock, R&B. It has some jazzy undertones, if anything, but yeah, it's just insane. This record is honestly insane. I think the last song, No Heaven, I believe is the name of the track, is like an 8-minute like progressive rock song that gets crazier by the minute. Again, this record is just so many things. I think it even has that instances of like breakcore or like glitch pop. It has so many things going on. I will say that sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming, and some songs are a bit slow in its pacing. It might require a lot of patience, but for the most part, this record, it has so many things going on to the point that I don't think you can get fully bored. I think you get fully invested in this record, and I would say that I think every song in here is for a particular group, if anything, a particular audience. And I think you will have probably that one song that you'll probably stick to, listen to it over and over and over to the point that you want to revisit the record. I'm saying this because that thing happened to me. There was like 2 or 3 songs that I was listening over and over, and I just came back to this record and I just adored it even more. All right, so going to number 29, we have Bad News by Blue and the Real Bad Man. I did shout out the Real Bad Man. I think, was it last year, my best albums or my honorable mentions with the Boldy James record that they had together. I thought that record was solid. But anyway, going back to this record, Bad News, I would say, is even better than that record because it fits it fits blues like it fits blues like writing and just rapping overall much better than Boldy did, if anything. I think he's much more comfortable. It's a short, brief record. It's just almost banger after banger after banger with some great occasional features. And I think the Real Bad Man just gives him some of, I think, if not his best batch of beats that I've heard so far in these collaborations that he's had in these past couple of years, if anything. And man, shout out to Blue. I think Blue just confirmed that Blue is still an underrated rapper, if anything. Like this man dropped one of the most impressive hip hop records I think I've heard in a very long time back in 2020 with Blue and with Exile. I can't believe I forgot the name. Is it self-titled? I'm not entirely sure. It probably isn't. It was Miles. I'm a dumbass. It was Miles. Yeah, but that record was honestly amazing. You should definitely give it a listen, even though it's very long. But just seeing his consistency throughout the years, just still giving us projects, giving us EPs, giving us features. It just proves that Blue deserves all the flowers in the world. And with this record, he just again, it's like a victory lap for him. It's like here's another record proving that I am one of the goats in this genre. Number 28, I have Naya Sabe Lo Que Va a Pasar Mañana by Bad Bunny. Obviously, as a Puerto Rican, I have to give a shout out to Bad Bunny. Uh, this record is interesting because I even think this might be better than Un Verano Sin Ti, which you guys know that I really, really enjoyed Un Verano Sin Ti last year, especially since you guys can see my reaction. It's one of my highest viewed videos in this channel, and I just went apeshit for it last year. But I think what this record might do a bit better is it offers, I guess, it offers a bit more replayability, if anything. Now thinking about it, I think well, it is around the same time as Un Verano Sin Ti, but it has so many just bangers and bangers and bangers in here. The hidden features when it initially dropped, even though it's revealed now, was such a great thing to just witness. If anything, it's just like surprise, guys, surprise that there's a surprise. And the mere fact that he got Young Chimmy and Lual on the same record just proves, I guess, how great of a record this is. He wanted to go a bit more trap, kind of verge himself away from the more pop reggaeton style that he used to do, even though there is like a track or two in this record that has some reggaeton scattered around here. But yeah, I think overall he did the fans justice by just giving us more of the nostalgia that we demanded and we wanted. We wanted Trap Bunny back. He returned and he gave us a long yet instantly rewarding record where it's almost nothing but just trap bangers with some new wave features, if anything. Number 27, we have The Land is on in a hospital. In it, I can't even say this. Inhabitable, I think, right? And So Are We by Mitski. It's a long, complicated title. Number 27, yeah. So, in terms of, I have a very complicated relationship with Mitski. I did tune in. I did listen to that Cowboy record, which everybody was just talking about back in 2018. I still don't find that record to be as amazing as everybody's saying. Sorry, probably not my cup of tea. I might give it a re-listen because it was a pretty. It's been years, I think, since I listened to that record. But anyway, I did listen to her record last year, which I think was Lauren Hell. I forgot what it's called. I wasn't impressed by the record at all. But now with this record, it's honestly gorgeous. It's pretty. It's very theatrical, if anything. It's very cinematic. There's luscious production all over across this record. I can't really get bored listening to this album. Sure, it's more a bit slower in its tempo and slower in its pacing, but even the interludes, which really captured me, are just so perfect. If anything, they're just monsters. They're just big. They're grand. They're gorgeous. They're enormous. They feel like the whole world depends on these little like mini 50-second songs of interludes. It's insane, honestly, and I think the writing is much more improved in this record. It's much stronger when she's trying to tell more of a detailed scenario and a more of a detailed storytelling. 26, we have The Beggar by Swans. I was going to listen to their other projects, but again, life got in the way, and they were like 2 hours long, so I couldn't. I don't know. I never found the time for it until now with The Beggar, which is still like I think almost their longest record to date, ironically speaking. But yeah, if I'm being honest, I think I listened to this record maybe once or twice. The reason why I'm putting in this record up this high is because I will never listen to an album like this probably again in a very long time. This record is like a whole like soul searching journey, if anything, in which just gets deeper and deeper in between its layers. Sure, there are some kind of slightly boring parts in here, but I think the huge splashes of beauty that are just sprinkled across this 2 hour record is just insane. And once again, we're never going to get records like these again because Swans takes like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years to make another record. And I don't blame them. What else could you say at this point when you make albums like this before? But yeah, again, returning to The Beggar, I think The Beggar is very deep in what it's trying to offer. It has a lot to give. And again, it's very personal in terms of, I think Michael. I think his the lead singer's name is Michael. I might be tripping, but in terms of the lead singer and what he's trying to say, I believe I think this is like very personal, touchy, a touchy subject. It does deal with fatherhood. It does deal with again some very depressive elements in here. It does deal with the meaning. I guess the question of what is life. So very philosophical undertones in here. It's very philosophical, just themes and topics sprinkled across this record that make it very interesting and it just makes the listener wants to keep on going to uncover the lead singer's philosophy and what they're trying to convey. At number 25, we have Void Dire. I don't know how you can say that name, Void Dire. I don't know how you can say that name by Earl Sweatshirt and Alchemist. I was a bit fishy. I was a bit kind of iffy in terms of listening to this album because it was an NFT. I don't know about you. I find NFTs to be a bit stupid. I don't understand the whole thing with NFTs, and I was not going to go on a website to listen to the album, even if it was free, because I do not like listening to albums or music on websites. I like to listen to it on SoundCloud. I like to listen to it on Spotify or an app, where I can like turn off my phone and still listen to it, not be stuck up like the whole thing there. But anyway, aside of my NFT rant, again, I think that this record, because I'm reviewing the streaming version, by the way. I'm not reviewing the original version, just the streaming version, because I'm too lazy to find the other version, just the one that's in Spotify. I think this record is still very, very, very good. The mere fact that it took this long for him to put on streaming is absurd. But yeah, I think the features in here are just fantastic. Vince Staples having two features and killing the two features, I would say potentially out rapping Earl Sweatshirt, is insane. And can we talk about the mere fact that the Alchemist brought his A game once again with this record and brought us the best batch of beats since Alfredo, which was like back in 2020, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, the beats in here are just amazing. They're glamorous, they're exotic, they just fit the vibe overall. And I think Earl's pen is still there, even though it can be a bit undermined and a bit underwhelming in terms of comparing it to the Alchemist's production. I still think he pulls his weight with his pen here and there. There are some catchy hooks. There are some great one-liners in here that I still kind of quote from a day-to-day basis. At number 24, we have Let's Start Here by Lil Yachty. I was very surprised when he dropped an album like this. It's very Tame Impala. It's very Tame Impala inspired. I don't know if he has production credits in here. He might have production credits. Very Pink Floyd. Wish You Were Here inspired with the amount of synthesizers and the amount of like psychedelic production that's involved in here. It's kind of crazy. Again, I think that Lil Yachty kind of plays more in the directorial seat, if anything. I do think that he can get. I do think that the features can sometimes kind of put out something better than him in terms of their verses and stuff and their performance. But that's okay because I think Yachty kind of pulls his strength a bit and even gives us some great rapping performance here and there, even though he, I guess, goes more into singing. The Ride is an amazing song. Which even though I think Tizo had an amazing performance, it probably is the best feature in that entire record. I don't know. I just think that Yachty pulls his weight and still gives us a very catchy and it's still a great performance. This is sort of like Yachty's Igor in a way, in which he's reinventing himself. And I really hope that his next record is something that blows this thing out of the water even more. At number 23, we have Naknaria by Maruja. Maruja, I don't know how you can say it. I think they're like Australian or something. They're an Australian jazz punk band. I've never heard the term jazz punk until now. Well, actually, no, I have heard jazz punk before by some Japanese groups and some other groups. Anyway, returning to this topic. I think Maruja really pulled something here with this record. I've never heard of Maruja, by the way, until I listened to this EP. And for like 4, 5, or 6, I don't know how many songs are in here. It's a short album. It's an EP, if anything. It's just wow. It's honestly just amazing. It's like the amount of effort put into this production, the amount of effort put into these structures, despite its very like short time frame, it's insane. There's some great songwriting in here, some of the best punk performances I've heard in a minute, I think ever since Black Midi with Hellfire last year. And again, it's just very progressive. You never get bored. You're always in the edge of your seat, and it's one of the best 20 minutes I think I've had listening to a record. At number 22, we have Red Moon Venus by Kali Uchis. It's Kali Uchis, man. I have to put her here. I think she makes some of the best accessible R&B music out there, if anything, especially in the mainstream genre. That's not to say they're not great mainstream R&B records. It's just that Kelly has a way of just making her album almost like an entire world, if anything. And when this record, we're basically in Venus, it feels perfect. It feels clean. The mixing in here is just great. It's just it's neat. It gives enough room. It gives enough room for like the chords. It gives enough room to like any pads or piano chords that are getting to the mix to sit there perfectly. The bass is to sit there well, and even the occasional features are pretty nice. But I think does such a great job in terms of her performance that she just washes anybody out of the water. Even Don Toliver in that song, which I thought was kind of a cute little duet that they had together. Number 21 has Ugly by Slow Tie. He did make it in my 2021 year-end list with Tyrone, which I still listen to this day. It's very accessible, and it's a great record. It has some bangers. Controversy aside surrounding Slow Tie's situation, obviously this album came out before the situation. It's a bit hard to listen to having a situation in mind. I don't know what the verdict was, if it was guilty or not guilty, but aside of that, I think this record is his like I would say this record is like his magnum opus, if anything. The sheer like emotion put into this record, the writing that's put in here, the production, how chaotic it is overall, and the concept attached to it when it comes to mental health, when it comes to suicidal tendencies, when it comes to, I guess, trying to maintain healthy relationships with his family, with his friends, the struggle of maintaining that, and the struggle of being accessible in the public's eyes, even though he wants to, I guess, be a bit more even though he wants to liberate himself a bit more and become more expressive as an artist, is honestly just a testament to his discography and a testament to his artistry. At number 20, I have 10,000 Gets by 100 Gex. Before you guys just talk to me in the comments and, oh, he listens to 100 Gex and this and that, I wasn't a huge fan of the debut record. I think that record is just fine. I don't know why people like praise it or call it a masterpiece. I think it's an okay record. Money Machine is the only song I really come back to. But this record was a huge 180 for them. It's much more coherent, if anything. It doesn't feel like it's a huge pile of mess and then call it a day. There's actual structure in here. There is some funny and corny songwriting at times, and I'm using corny a bit lightly, you know. There are some very corny moments in here, but it's not to the point where it's like I can't listen to this record anymore. You know, it's fun. It's quirky at times as well. It's destructive. I think. America's Most Wanted, was it? I think that song was kind of cool. Also, the first track. I'm sorry for saying first track and second track. I just don't have the name on top of my head, and it's a lot of names that I had to group up. But I think it was Hollywood Baby is the second song, and the first song, again, there's just so many songs in here that are just absolutely insane. They just keep on like evolving as it goes. I just love how destructive the atmosphere is. It just feels like they're not limiting themselves at all. There's no limits in terms of their music, and they can just kind of go out there and just say whatever they want, and it still comes out as great, despite them not saying that much on their songs. At number 19, I have Praise the Lord Who Choose But Which Is Not Consumed by Yves Tumor. It's a longer name, but again, this record it kind of reminds me of Let's Start Here by Lil Yachty. It's some great industrial punk, post-pop punk almost. Is it punk? Kind of. Yet like synth pop, it's a lot of things. It's basically a lot of things. It's like, again, it's very 80s vintage pop music, but yet some industrial punk, some industrial undertones thrown in there. It's very experimental. It's very catchy, and while I do think that the mixing kind of, I guess, draws out of the vocal inflection, draws out of the lyrics and what he's trying to say, I still feel that he built such an they built such an amazing world that it's just captivating. I just want to stay for this world forever. It's honestly it's destructive, it's beautiful, it's colorful at times, and it's honestly one of the catchiest record I've heard this year all around. It's really one hell of an album. Number 18, we have Hellmode by Jeff Rosentock, I believe is his name. This record is one of the smartest records I've heard in a minute. It's one of the better pop punk records that I've heard as well. Probably the best one I've heard in a long time. I love how it's writing. It's super self-reflective and super self-aware. It's also a great satire in terms of the social political landscape that's going on in the States right now. It tackles a lot of things in terms of race, in terms of politics, in terms of culture, traditions, everything. It's a critique of everything, but it uses it as a way, as like a vessel. It kind of like the writing itself. It's like super self-aware, super obnoxious at times. That it's obvious that it's a satire. And I think that how Jeff built this whole atmosphere with these at times choirs and at these times double vocals and progressive songs where it goes a bit more deeper, a bit more sentimental. I feel that he builds such a captivating world around him to the point that again, it's one of the it makes it one of the most memorable pop punk records that I've heard in a long time. And there is some absolutely crazy, super hard, heavy guitars thrown in here. Again, it's pop, it's punk, and but there is also at the same time some very nice acoustic ballads thrown in here. So again, give it a shot if you're into that stuff. At number 17, I have "Ways of Knowing" by Navy Blue. I've been following Navy Blue since like 2020, 2021 ish, something like that. I know he's had some albums before the album that he dropped of that year, which I think was Songs of Post Stage or something. I believe it's a great record. I remember really enjoying that record. But yeah, this record might be even a slight improvement over that record. Just the way that I think the first song, yeah, even the first song on this record kind of made me a bit teary eyed. It did kind of make me cry a bit because of how realistic it is in terms of depictioning the depiction of like I guess loss in the family and just as he said in the song, just like seeing ghosts in the hallway, his brother's ghosts in the hallway. That sort of like lyric itself kind of made me cry a bit because it's like such a true thing in terms of like when you're losing a family member, or you're losing someone close to you, kind of like seeing the reflections everywhere. And it's very like just mental and very I guess personal writing that's thrown in here in this song and into this record in general. It's a great self-portrait in terms of his roots, in terms of his family, and I love how he's paying homage to his grandfather, his late grandparents, who unfortunately passed away apparently, with also this like absolutely beautiful and stunning jazz slash hip hop production surrounding it. Again, if you're into the very deep and very I guess methodical writing and very abstract hip hop poetry type of writing, definitely give this record a listen. It's one of the most sentimental and the most personal records I've heard in a long time. At number 16, we have "Fountain Baby" by Amaarae. Amaarae. Hopefully, I said that correctly as well. I'm messing up so many names, and I'm sorry for that. It's just their names. I can't say anything about it. But yeah, "Fountain Baby" is one of the catchiest records I've heard this year. I know I'm saying one of this year and of all time or this and that. It's just the truth, honestly. These records are just that great to me. But yeah, "Fountain Baby" has such catchy writing in general. But this album in general, it just again it's just more of like an artist album. It's just super experimental. It's super catchy. It's all over the place. She's trying to, I guess, express herself a bit more as an artist, trying to make herself a bit more serious and a bit more presentable. She's saying, "Hey, I can do all of this. Here's me going with Afrobeats. Here's me going R&B. Here's me going rock. Here's me going a bit more hip hop." There's so many things going on with this record, and I think the closest comparison that I can point out is like "Renaissance" by Beyonce, in terms of like how experimental and how like I guess abrasive it is as a project, saying this is me. I'm not afraid to go this far in terms of my sound. This is how much I can diversify my sound and still sound great, even front to back in this record. At number 15, I have "Mid-Air" by Paris, Texas. This record has been labeled by many as corny in terms of its songwriting. Sure, there are some lines that can make you, I guess, be like, this is very corny. But I think it kind of comes like in good faith in terms of like it's just corny because it's trying to be funny and it just comes out very naturally. Again, like the closest thing that I can mention, like I can like I guess draw parallels to, is like imagine like the Saturation trilogy. Imagine like Brockhampton when they were writing more catchier songs, like Gold, for instance. It's almost the same thing. It's just very catchy. It's very corny, but it just has so many things to offer in terms of its songwriting, in terms of its structure, and how it's positioned, how the beats in here just super well mixed. The rap rock tracks don't sound unbearable. It's not like super generic rap rock, like boilerplate, cringy songs. It's great. It's catchy. It doesn't take itself way too seriously. It's just there to vibe, to have some fun. And as a debut record, I think as a debut record, it's just amazing. At number 14, I have "The Struggler" by Genesis Owusu. I did shout out Genesis back in my 2021 list with "Smiling with No Teeth," which I think still is one of the best R&B blend slash punk records that I've heard in a very long time. And I did say that I loved the songwriting in that album, and I loved the character that Genesis had in that album in general. And it's safe to say that this record has the almost the exact same thing, but it's even more experimental. He dives more into, I guess, more pop style of I guess, a more experimental pop style in this record, kind of abandoning a bit more of his R&B side. He does have some R&B cuts here and there that are great, but it's the bigger focus in here is more like pop, a bit more like pop punk in this record, almost like the Yves Tumor record that I was pointing out. Again, I think his songwriting in here is still great. It's still catchy. It's still very metaphorical in terms of like the points that he wants to prove or just wants to share in this record. I do think that there are some blind spots in this record that could have been improved a bit if maybe the songs weren't, I guess, a bit too long and it could have been a bit shorter. But overall, this record is, I think this record personally holds a torch to Smiling with No Teeth and still offers the same value that Genesis has as an artist. At number 13, we have Quaranta by Danny Brown. This record has been teased for years, I think, and it's supposed to be the sequel to Triple X, and the follow-up record to You Know What I'm Saying, which came out like 4 or 5 years ago, back in 2019. And I also did put that record in one of my favorite records of the year. And even coming back to it, I still enjoy the record a lot. But anyway, going back to this album, Quaranta, I think is just, I think, Danny's best solo project since Atrocity Exhibition. It's very personal. It's very slow in terms of its tempo, but it's not slow to the point that it's boring or it's like unbearable. I think it's more serious, and Danny wants to prove a point in terms of like, hey, you know, even as I'm getting older, there's still more problems piling up. A bit more of like checking up on him, just saying, hey, there's still more, problems piling up, but I'm going to progress over these obstacles, still progress over these problems, and at the same time, sort of have fun with it, because the first leg in this record has some very eccentric songs like Dark Sword Angel, Tantor, which was the lead single for this project and possibly my favorite song on this record as well. It also has Ain't My Concern, I believe, Not My Concern, which is a great song as well. Again, there are some fun moments in this record, even though it's a bit smaller than the moments, it's a bit less than the moments that are more serious and more, I guess, emotional in terms of its writing. But again, even with that being said, I think Danny's pen is still very sharp, even though there's not that many performances and inflictions that we would get in Atrocity Exhibition or his usual work. I still think that even him just sitting down there with his pen, focusing more on his writing than his performance, still pays off in the long term. Number 12, I have Burning Desire by Mike. I kind of listened to this record kind of recently, a few weeks ago. And man, I was missing out. I really was missing out. Everybody was talking a lot about this album, how this album was just super experimental, super this, probably Mike's best project. It was everything basically. It was like the T-Pab almost at that point. But yeah, I am familiar with Mike. I have heard Disco before. I really do like Disco. But coming to this record, I don't know what I was expecting. I thought I was expecting just the typical Mike stuff for almost the entire album, which kind of threw me off at first. But I was completely wrong. Even though the track list might seem long, most of these songs are like mad villainy in terms of like its length. They're like 2 or almost 3 minute songs, if not less, that just keep on evolving as it is, and it connects to the other song in terms of a seamless transition. This record is a lot of things, and boring is not. It's not boring at all, not one bit. The extremely creative and experimental jazz chopped up beats thrown in here are just insane. Even the 1 minute 30-second songs that have these like super minute, super small beats are still insane. They're sporadic. They're just right in your face. Mike is spitting bars at you, In some tracks in here, he goes a bit more abstract in terms of his writing. He does kind of does a bit more soul searching in this record, self-reflection, something that you would have heard in, I guess, other Mike projects as usual, or even a Navy Blue record. But all in all, it just proves that Mike is not a copycat of Rose Sweatshirt. A lot of people say that. It's not true. Mike is his own self, and this record is Mike's most experimental and his best artistic project and best artistic testament till date. This record is insane. Give it a shot. At number 11, I have After the Magic and After the Night by Parannoul. These are technically 2 different records, but one is a live album and the other, it just has an extra track that's just very long. So I'm just putting this in the same level because I also just don't know where else to put them. In terms of shoegaze, I do listen to shoegaze. I like shoegaze. I think that even like my favorite shoegaze album ever, Loveless by My Bloody Valentine, which is probably the most generic pick ever. I do really like shoegaze a lot. But I think that After the Night, or After the Magic, whichever version, I kind of like them equally, is just a great testament to the shoegaze genre. And I know that Parannoul has been making waves before, and he has been, I guess, sort of crowned as like the best thing the shoegaze has to offer in terms of the Korean shoegaze scene and just more of the underground scene, which honestly I can see because this record has so many details and so much just effort put into it. I do think the mixing can be a bit chaotic. It kind of works in its favor though in some tracks. Others, it's a bit hard to understand what's going on. But again, overall in this record, it's magical. No pun intended. It's magical. It's grand. And it's only like one artist, aside with like three other artists contributing here and there, in terms of production and musical style and just structure. It's insane. This record is one of the best indie shoegaze records I've heard ever, if not the best one that I've heard of this decade. There's a lot of effort in here. There's a lot of details put into it. And man, Parannoul is one of the greatest artists this decade has to offer. So at number 10, we have Raven by Kelela. I think Kelela is one of the better R&B singers out there. Honestly, her performances, every time I hear her perform, it gets insane. Her range is just beautiful. It's eccentric. It's grandiose. And this record is nothing short but amazing. It honestly is. It's one of the most pleasant atmospheres I've ever heard in a record. The mix between experimental like drone dance music and some R&B and ambient music as well that are into the mix is insane. And sure, it does require a lot of patience. It does require sometimes to get used to the entire thing that's going on in here. At first, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it as much as everybody else. I gave it some time, and when you give it some time, it really just kind of sets in you. It settles in, and it just makes it one of the most enjoyable experiences when listening to an R&B dance record, which again, yes, I'm saying R&B dance because it has a lot of dance cuts and a lot of great transitions. Contact is easily my favorite song of this album and my favorite dance song of this year, easily. The way it just progresses in general from this like pad that's going in reverse to these constant like drums that are going into the mix. Kelela's performance, nothing is stopping Kelela. This record is honestly just great. The whole performance in this record is amazing. I think it does have some occasional features, maybe one or two features. But even with that, I still don't think they even add that much to this record. I think Kelela's the main star, and she proves it by the way she's just singing her ass off. The writing that's putting in here, since it's very emotional. It does have mention of finding your first love, heartbreak, the whole process of like recovering, and just I guess the tensions that come when it comes to heartbreak. And she paints it very vividly in terms of the sound that's thrown in here, how some of these synth basses are very deep, some of these melodies can get a bit melancholic. The atmosphere that builds up as the record progresses. Again, this record is just insane, and I'm just so glad that an album like this exists. At number 9, we have That Feels Good by Jessie Ware. I am familiar with Jessie Ware's past material. What's Your Pleasure is a great record. They're just blasting music right now. I'm sorry for that. But yeah, What's Your Pleasure is such a great album, and I can understand why Fantano gave it the best album of the year when it came out. It's a fantastic record. Give it a listen. But That Feels Good, I would say, is even more grandiose project. I would say the production is even better in terms of it. There's just so many things going on. Even the intro track feels like a whole like play is going, it's unraveling itself. The horns, the saxophones, the just bigger than life strings put in here, the catchy songwriting, it's insane. And even my favorite song in here, which is Hello Love, is such a great cinematic orchestral song that kind of dives deep into Jessie Ware, into like putting Jessie Ware as this character where she's returning to her ex, just seeing her once again, kind of reminiscing what went wrong, progressing in terms of her personal life, and just how this song evolves as it gets more beautiful and beautiful. It gives me goosebumps. Even talking about it right now, it gives me goosebumps. It's an insanely catchy and emotional and just, I guess, a grandiose song that I just absolutely adore. It's getting a bit dark in the lighting. I'm sorry, my lighting rig is not working for some reason. But yeah, it's a grandiose song. I freaking love it and adore it. And overall in this project, it has some of the catchiest songwriting you're going to hear in a pop R&B record. And it's just very loose as well. I mean, I think Jessie was never afraid of like, I guess, exploring, or I guess talking about her sexuality in terms of like how much of a sex icon she can be. She's not afraid of going beyond barriers and is, I guess, becoming a bit more erotic in terms of her lyrics, which it can be a bit of an eye roll here and there in this record and in her content in general. But I think that this record is just so catchy. It's so like just sweet to listen to that I don't mind it at all. It's just I think it's even an attribute to this record of what it has to offer. Number 8, we have Javelin by Sufjan Stevens. I am familiar with Sufjan Stevens. I did listen to Illinois, I believe, a few months ago, and I think that record was great, and it's one of the most massive records I've heard in my life. But returning to Javelin here, Javelin is such an emotional record. Sufjan always has a lot of emotional records, and a lot of personal records. It isn't like this first rodeo, but it's even more emotional when you realize that it's supposed to be like a tribute to his late husband, which unfortunately passed away recently. But yeah, just the sheer songwriting ability that Sufjan has as an artist is still crazy to me, even after Illinois or even after those records that are considered masterpieces and classics. Again, this record has so much to offer in terms of its sentiment, and it's just like its ability to communicate such a strong topic in terms of loss, mourning, I guess self worth, love. All of these topics just garnered together in like 38-minute record, if not a bit shorter. Again, it's a lot of things that are going on here. I think Sufjan just does it so well. The production is just beautiful. It's pretty grand, if anything, as well. Even though there's some elements a bit more stripped back for symbolic reasons and for conceptual reasons. Again, I think that Sufjan is this record just proves again that Sufjan is one of the best writers in this of our generation, and just one of the best writers ever in music history. It's not that much of a stretch to say. This man knows how to write his ballads and knows how to write his emotional material very damn well. At number 7, we have We Buy Diabetic Strips by Armand Hammer, which is the duo with Billy Woods and Elucid. Again, Billy Woods, anything with Billy Woods and Elucid, I think is obviously going to be in my top 10, almost. But yeah, this duo is just unstoppable. Honestly, I did really like Haram. I think that record was great, and this thing being the follow up is such an insane like 180. It's much more experimental. It's much more chaotic, if anything. We have production from JPEGMAFIA and LP at times, which again, this record is insane. I think it's their longest record till date. I might be mistaken on that, but just the atmosphere they create in here, which most of the time it's very dark, it's very rusty, it's very just like trashy in a way. I don't know how I can describe it. And just how it complements Billy Wood's delivery, the writing that he usually sticks with in terms of his abstract lyrics, Elucid's rampant performance when he snaps on tracks, the great features thrown in here in the mix, which are pretty surprising as well. It adds just so much to the value of this record and what it has to offer. It's very experimental. It's very loose. It doesn't really care what it's trying to do. It doesn't really care who listens. It's more of like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, well, screw off. It's just it's very scaring the host type of a record. You know, it's very like, it's explosive. It's in your face. It's not afraid of being in your face. If you like it, you don't. Again, if you don't, kind of screw off. And I like that. You know, it's like I like that because it just proves that Billy Woods and Elucid, again, as a duo, they work so well, and they're not afraid of just pushing the boundaries even more with every record. We have Data by Tainy. This record blew my mind, honestly. At first, I wasn't a huge fan. I thought it was okay, it was decent, you know, but it didn't blow me away. But the more I listened to this record, the more it drew in me, and it is, I would say, the best reggaeton record I've heard in like 3 or 4 years, 5 years. I don't know. Honestly, as a record in general, it's just insane. It's not even like just reggaeton. It has pop. It has trap. It has some electronic music thrown in there, some slight EDM influences. It's a lot of things, and it just shows how much of an important figure Tainy is in terms of the Latin American music scene, in terms of the Spanish music scene. He's not just the guy who makes beats for big artists like Bad Bunny. He's the guy who just kind of created waves indirectly in terms of the sound, in terms of the very smoky, psychedelic melodies and reggaeton beats and glitchy stuff that you would hear. Fantasma being one of the best songs of the year, easily, with the fantastic J. Cortez feature, in terms of how that song progresses and having 2 songs in one, which has been done before, but the switch up is just insane. It's even a better beat than the one that was previous. And the mere fact that this guy added an extra song even after this with Colmillo, which is like the Sampha era of like the album, and like the closest thing I think we would have to a very Sampha style song, with how glitchy and how much it just evolves and switches its beats as it progresses. It's insane. This man is not afraid of doing anything. And how can I forget Pa Siempre being the absolute dream team of a song that is, having an insane amount of features. And we have Alka and Bad Bunny on the same song. That is nuts. That is insane. I would never expect that in a billion years. So yeah, this record is just almost perfect for those who just have been sticking around to the Latin American music scene. 5, we have Maps by Billy Woods and Kenny Seagal. Again, I was mentioning Billy Woods. Billy Woods, I would say, is the best underground hip hop writer of currently right now, if anything. I don't think anybody's close to beating his pen game. The way this man can just like tell some very dumb stories, but yet in a very intricate and complex way, should be studied. It's insane. This pen again. But Kenny Seagal's production is such like a helping hand. There's a siren going off right now. I'm sorry for that. Right now it's just Gotham City where I live right now. But yeah, again, returning to the record, Maps has a very jazz hop type of feeling. The sample chops are insane. There are just so many songs in here that are very intimate, if anything. I think Billy Woods is not afraid of going pretty deep and personal and offering some pretty great moments in general. Kenny Seagal's, it is very industrial, again, experimental hip hop and jazz hop sounds that he has here and there. And how can I forget the absolutely exquisite Danny Brown feature in Year Zero? I think I think Danny Brown stole the show with that song. But even aside of that, I think Billy Woods just shines in this record overall, with the song FaceTime being probably the second best song in this entire record. It just shares a very dumb story about him going to a concert and his relationship with this girl, but it has such like an ambient feeling to it in terms of the instrumental. His storytelling is very nice. It's very personal. It's very deep. And just, I guess, the chorus segment given by the feature, it is very catchy. It's very nice as well. Again, this record has so much to offer, and it is, again, it's like another extra victory lap of Billy Woods. This man dropped 2 fantastic records this year and another 2 fantastic records last year. Again, what can Billy Woods not do? This guy is insane and extraordinary. And again, it just proves that him and Kenny Seagal are also a fantastic duo side of the one that he has going on with Arm & Hammer. And number 4, we have This Is Why by Paramore. I did not expect Paramore to drop a record so good that would be in my top 4 or 5. I had nothing against them. I just was uncalled for. This is the best rock record I've heard this year overall. It is catchy. It is engaging. It's just like, it's a great tribute to like early 2000s music, early 2000s garage rock music, if anything. I know that Paramore were like the pioneers in that genre when they made music back then in the early 2000s, but even sticking to their song and sticking to their guns, they still make it sound fresh somehow. They're still like the only group that I've heard so far that even repeating the same style or formula is still kind of refreshing, and it's still great every time they do it. The songwriting in here is strong. The concepts that are sometimes thrown in here are strong. The performances are amazing. Hayley Williams might be one of the best female singers out there. It's honestly extraordinary how well she performs and sings. And it just proves that even after all those years, they still have the energy to put out a phenomenal record and still make it one of the most memorable and catchy records of the decade. Number 3, I have Beloved Paradise Jazz by McKinley Dixon. I haven't heard about McKinley Dixon at all. Maybe you might have heard him here and there, perhaps. I don't know. Again, this record was just like, a lot of people just started recommending this record and just saying how great it was. So I decided to give it a listen. And man, for an EP, this is insane. The level of detail in terms of the songwriting, the emotion that McKinley Dixon brings in here when he's reminiscing about his older times, paying tributes to his late grandparents, paying tributes to his mom, painting his vivid portraits of poverty, of just trauma, of just so many things going on in here. And in that song with Run, 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 I believe is the name of the song, where he just paints a vivid portrait of gun control. Again, this guy just, it's insane how well he did this record. The whole production is like almost like theatrical hip hop. I don't know how you can put it. It's not cringy, like it's not like a Hamilton like played style. It's just, again, it's bigger than life type production, and it's very uncalled for, especially from an artist that I haven't really heard that much at all. And just seeing that he has this much backup and effort and just support put into this material and his production style, again, it just puts him more in the limelight. And again, his writing is freaking phenomenal. His performance is just super raw. It's just passionate. It's just it's just there. And for an EP, it probably is the best EP this decade has to offer so far. I haven't heard an EP near this, if anything. And number two, we have Lahai by Sampha. Man, Sampha just came out of hiding, out of nowhere. He decided to just drop a record, drop literally the most beautiful record of this year alone, and one of the most beautiful records I've heard in my life. I mean, from start to finish, this record is just nothing but an invitation to heaven. Beautiful performance from start to end. He is a freaking angel. His vivid portraits and vivid songwriting of fatherhood, as he is a new father, the love that he wants to communicate and share with his son, with his kids, with his wife, with the people around him, family. Also, the importance of keeping family and friends together despite tumultuous times, and just finding his self-worth, his self-love and stuff. It's just these huge topics. Well, sure, there are some records that talk about it in super deep and intricate ways. You go through the worst moments ever, there's still a way to just come back out of it. And again, just the way this record sounds is just phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's airy. It's like it's an invitation to heaven practically. It's what it really is. It just feels like that record that you would put if you were just about to die. Like if you're literally about to die, you're sent to heaven, this is the record you would want to put. It's insanely detailed, and it is literally, as I said, the most beautiful record I've heard this year all along. Oh, the final record that I want to recommend, my album of the year, my number one spot, I am giving it to Scaring the Hose by JPEGMAFIA and Danny Brown. There's nothing really much to say on this record. It's kind of like what I expected and even a bit more. You know, it's funny because at first I did think this record was great, but the mixing was kind of over the place. It was a bit too much. But the more you listen to this record, the more you sit down and just say, "Wait a minute, let me give it a bigger attention. Let me give it a better listen." You realize it's exactly what you needed all along from these two. It's the album that they were teasing us for like a year or two, or I think ever since they collabed in the "You Know What I'm Saying" in that song. Yeah, it's basically that, but times 100 in terms of the explosiveness, raunchiness, eccentricity, the insane production from Peggy, like the type of style that you would probably hear from LP, or even possibly better than the production in LP. Again, JPEGMAFIA outdoes itself in every single record, and Danny Brown brings his A game, his biggest, fattest A game since Atrocity Exhibition. And the mere fact that he dropped Quaranta the same year, look, it just proves that these two are the GOATs of the underground scene right now, and just them combining forces, bringing the best and I guess the most like unserious record that you can possibly listen to of the decade, just says a lot. It says so many words, and it just proves that you don't need a highly conceptual record to make great and phenomenal music. This record is catchy, has an insane amount of replay value. You do not want to play this near the hose. You're gonna scare them for sure. But it's explosive, it's great, and it is a record for the history books, especially for the underground hip-hop basement dwellers who just love the huge experimental hip-hop scene. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say for this list. What are your favorite albums? Let me know in the comments down below. I know this is a bit lengthy, but yeah, let me know what your favorite albums of the year were down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Turn the notification bell on and subscribe so you don't miss an upload from me. And yeah, have a happy holidays for all of you, obviously, because I just realized that Christmas is nearing right here, and we're in the holiday season, which is kind of insane. But yeah, happy holidays to you guys. Stay safe from COVID and stay safe from any diseases that are going on or probably going to happen. And yeah, just stay healthy. That's a better slogan. Stay healthy, everybody. Peace out.